We're back for another week before we go on vacation again next week, right? No, I'm kidding. Not
No,
this
not for a
time.
while.
Not this time. Um, yeah, hello, welcome to Sunday morning Tinkle. In case you forgot, because we've been on the air, off the air, on the air again. That's Jason. I'm Brian. For the video listeners,
Yeah.
Jason's clearly repping Gravedigger this week. Nothing wrong with that. Um, and but anyway,
Nope.
coming up on the show.
Doesn't show on here, but anniversary T-shirt. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, nice.
So,
Didn't realize that. But anyway, coming up on the show, we're going to recap the NFL draft. We're going to talk the overseas games that have officially been leaked. And of course, we'll have Tinkle on this. But we begin with the rundown. I'm going to let you start, Mr. Rhode Island.
um, so mine's very NBA heavy because if I was to talk about NFL, it would be interrupting with draft stuff. So Dallas does move past the first round, the first time in 11 years. But things are not looking very promising. If we remember anything about 11 years ago, they were already up 2 games to none on the Lakers by this time in the second round. Well, this time they're down 2 games to none against the team that was the top seeded team last year. Well, not really the top seeded team, but the top seed, the team in the West, like they are this year. So it's not looking very promising. I think they're set to probably be swept because Luka has been doing all the work while Brunson and supporting cast have been nowhere to be found this series at all. So a lot of it can be like, do you credit the Suns for just being a better team and being able to just outgun, outman, and just outplay the Mavericks, or do you blame it more on the Mavs where, well, maybe if Luka had a little bit more production from a lot of the other guys, it would probably be a different story. I would probably say more so the Suns are just outplaying, outmanning, outgunning the Mavericks than is the other way around.
Well, let's face it, the Suns have something to prove this year. Keep in mind, they lost the NBA Finals last year. I said it last
Mm-hmm.
year, I said it 2 weeks ago, and I'll say it again. Chris Paul knows that he's got the reputation of being the next John Stockton after losing that title. And I assure you, he's fueled to get back there and prove all the people wrong. Because, again, he doesn't want to go down as the guy who never won a ring. He doesn't want to be in the conversation of one of the guys who could have won a ring and probably is one of the best to never do it.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's fuel to the fire there. And to be honest, the Suns are still established from last year. The Mavs have a new coaching staff. They just got rid of Kristaps Porzingis there. And, they still got
If I
stuff to
see,
build on. It's nothing
yeah, I
bad.
was gonna say it's a good stepping stone. It proves that they still have a lot of work to be done, but they're getting into the right direction. I was saying it even to Marty outside, either Marty or somebody. Mavericks are um, could use another superstar, and this is really showcasing in this series that the weight is too heavy on the Luka's shoulders. The man shouldn't be averaging like over 30, almost closer to 40 points a game in the series just to try to put his team into contention with the Suns. There's been a few times where the Mavericks have been able to come back and make it manageable in the series, but last game, Chris Paul just took over in the fourth quarter, and the Mavericks lost by 20 points. Rightfully so. The series will be going back to Dallas soon enough. Of course, when this episode does, get uploaded, it's going to be 3 games in, and who knows? They could be very well down 3-0. If I had to choose how many games this will go, I'm gonna say 5.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's gonna go any more than that.
I think,
and if it does, it does. And if it doesn't, then it was nice to see them get out of the first round for the first time in a long time. So
5-6 games is gracious, I think. I think it's too much to expect 7 out of this.
Yeah, of course. I'm going to say more so either 4 or 5. Moving forward, Boston Celtics are... Wow. I tell you. We're without the reigning Defensive Player of the Year, Marcus Smart, due to injury. But, man, the 2 young stars, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, step up in very commanding fashion and beat the defending champions in Game 2. Of course, when this debuts, Game 3 would have just happened. And this might be the series to watch.
Well,
because all the other ones are very 2-0, 2-0. I don't remember what else. The Warriors, as well as the God, who did they play up against? Oh, the Warriors and Grizzlies are kind of hit and miss. But if there's any series that's kind of enjoyable to watch right now, I think it's going to be the Celtics and Bucks to have which could very well go 7 games. I think that's going to be the one series in the second round. It's going to go 7 games. It's going to be between the Bucks and the Celtics.
Yeah.
I think whoever wins this series is going to be the team to beat in the Eastern Conference. The Heat, the only reason why the 76ers, and I'll go into that too, Miami Heat are up 2-0 on the Embiid-less 76ers. A lot of questions could be said, well, is that the real reason why they're down 2 games? Because they're without Joel Embiid. He's got the orbital fracture. He's still out with concussion because of what happened in Game 1, I'm pretty sure. Are the 76ers goners, or will they actually snag a game or 2?
I'm going to be fair here. I just want to backtrack for a sec. I would not discredit the Heat just yet, okay? There's a reason they're up 2-0 right now. And, you can say, oh, it's without Joel Embiid. They still got James Harden. They still got stars on that team. This is Doc Rivers versus Eric Spoelstra. And plain and simply, Eric Spoelstra's out coaching him at the end of the day. I haven't seen the series, but I could tell you, based on everything I know about Doc Rivers in the playoffs, he's probably getting out-coached. Okay? And that's what's going to make the Eastern Conference Final, regardless. I'm not going to declare the Heat win it just yet, going to the Eastern Conference Finals, because anything could happen in these next 4 or 5 games, whatever it takes to close out the series. But I can assure you, if the Heat make it, and, whether it's the Celtics or the Bucks, let me put it this way, the Heat are going to have something against the Bucks because of what happened last year. And if, the Celtics get Marcus Smart back, it's going to force Eric Spoelstra to be creative again, because he's going against, I believe, the top defense in the league. One of the top defenses in the league.
Oh, in the Bucks?
Oh, no, the Celtics being one of the top ones in the league.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. It's kind of weird how the NBA is evolving. It's evolving more into a very defensive-heavy league right now, which is a good thing. It's about time that teams are trying to get more focused on a defense and getting great defenders around, because it's showcasing that you don't need like all these all-stars on one team. Yeah, it's nice to have, but it's showcasing that if you have a very good defensive team and these guys can score, you don't need all-stars. Look at the Miami Heat. They don't have really a true all-star. Yeah, they have Jimmy Butler, Victor Oladipo, but if you look at them, they're not really big all-star talent. They are just be able to have a great team around them because they know the task at hand and are a great defensive team.
And let's add Robinson's a great shooter. He's a gem for that team. And then on top of it, Tyler Hero, he's just Tyler Hero, he's a beast, There's no denying that. He's not a superstar, but he's a beast. But
Sixth Man of the Year too.
Goes back to what I say all the time. Championships, defense wins championships. Sorry.
Defense wins championships, yes.
Yep. All right. Sorry, long pause. I just want to be sure you're all good.
Yeah, I'm good. You're kind of cutting in and out, but I can hear you for the most part.
All right. Let's see. Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
because I got a public service announcement, courtesy of the Tampa Bay Lightning. They even the series on Wednesday, of course, much like the NBA. The series could have changed by now. Tampa Bay, of course, won 5-1 Wednesday over the Toronto Maple Leafs. A big win on the road. Now they go back to Tampa Bay and try to push the envelope to 2-1. And that win is a statement of why the Tampa Bay Lightning are back-to-back champions in the league. Okay? You don't bounce back from losing 5-0 the night before and win 5-1 the next night and not consider it a statement when...
And then I think it very much is a statement win, and it's a big statement when they need, because this is a team that is back-to-back champions, looking to make the three-peat for the first time in a long time for any hockey team in the NHL. So
first time in North America too, in 20-something years.
But so I guess very well happen, but.
That's a testament. And can I just say, with any three-peat, I don't want to hear Patriot Dynasty. I don't want to hear Chiefs Dynasty. I don't want to hear, the Miami Heat Dynasty. The list goes on. I don't want to hear it anymore, because if the Tampa Bay Lightning, in today's day and age where teams are a little bit more balanced out at the top, okay, like the competition level's a lot tighter at the top in all major leagues in the North American, region here. That's not an easy three-peat by any means. And on top of it, with rules set to avoid to even out the competition, this would be huge for Tampa Bay to win it. And to be honest, dare I say, more impressive than the Lakers and the Bulls? I'm just saying, look at, not snubbing Michael Jordan. This is absolutely no snub to Michael Jordan. But look at his competition on the West Coast. Just saying. Look at Shaq and Kobe's competition. They had some good competition. There's no denying it, but I wouldn't consider it, as even as it is now. I mean, hell, look at the Chiefs and the Bills. Let's skip to the football side. Chiefs and the Bills are probably the most even teams in the league right now in the NFL.
And the crazy thing is we'll talk about it too, but that's why I don't want to go too far. But yeah, you're right. I would probably say that, but when we get to it, I probably will say maybe not now.
Yeah,
um,
but
but
yeah,
some interesting local news.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Let's say a big shout out to the Rochester Amerks. Can I just say,
Mhm.
Jason, I'm kicking myself right now because I'm telling
Oh yeah,
you,
for not being able to
on
go.
on Tuesday, I was sitting there. I'm looking at the tickets and I'm like, should I? Shouldn't I? What should I do? Granted, I don't think anybody would have been able to go, but
Probably not.
you know, I am kicking myself for not being there. The Rochester Americans were down 3-zip to the Belleville Senators in Wednesday's play-in game. Now, keep in mind the AHL has play-in games, much like the NBA, or play-in
Yep,
series,
for the
which is
Calder
different.
Cup playoffs.
And I don't like that either, but, I digress.
Yeah, but a lot of
Um,
sports are gonna start going that route, and
yeah,
I hate to
but
say it, don't be shocked if all sports in some way, shape, or form goes that route. Um, I'm grateful that the NFL hasn't, but don't be
yeah,
shocked. Anything could
don't
happen.
ruin it. Don't ruin it. But the Amerks win their first playoff game in 7 years. They came back from down 3-zip, won in overtime. The 17th minute of overtime, they get the goal to seal the game. And now the Amerks are in Ottawa, or are in Belleville, as we're talking, preparing for game 2 out of the best of 3. So now it's win and you're in, or lose, and there's a game 3 on Sunday.
Hmm.
So that's the situation we're at right now. But the Amerks, this is their first playoff win in 7 years. And if they win on Friday night, which we don't know if they did or not, it would be their first playoff series win in, I believe, 13 to 16 years, I heard on the news this afternoon. So
Oh, I really have no idea.
it's insane. It's absolutely insane. Keep in mind the Amerks have been really good in the Calder Cup playoffs if you go back to the 90s, the 80s. Unfortunately, then I was born and the Amerks started sucking. So you can blame me. You can blame me, folks. But nonetheless, great comeback. And boy, if they make it to the next round, I'm going to try to find some tickets. I'm not going to lie.
That place actually, I tell you what, I don't think I've ever really seen the Blue Cross Arena so packed
For a hockey game.
for a hockey game ever in my lifetime, because I saw a video from, of course we know, Alex Beachy.
Well,
He had
yeah, we got friends. We got friends that went.
so I saw his Snap story, and it was pretty damn packed there in Rochester for
Yeah.
Blue Cross
And,
Arena for
well,
the game.
actually,
So
let's be fair. This is the first game we've seen it packed. If you recall the 2018 Winter Olympics, they wouldn't allow the NHL players to go. And Brian Giunta played a game for the Rochester Amerks to prepare to go to the Olympics in Pyeongchang. So he played the game, and I believe that arena almost sold out for that game. I wasn't in attendance, but I saw some of the videos, and my parents went, and I regret that ever since.
crazy to think about.
Moving on to another New York team, the one we don't like. The New York Yankees had a nice 11-game winning streak for the last couple weeks here. Boy, it'd be a shame if someone ended it, and they did. The Toronto Blue Jays ended it on Wednesday, but let's be fair. Now, again, we still got 130-something games to go, but you've got to imagine early on so far the Yankees are peaking, looking like the team to beat. So, again, it's still early, but they're peaking early. And that could be good or bad.
Peaking at the right point.
Yeah. I wouldn't say it's the right point just yet. Now, I mean, if they peak after the All-Star game and they go on another run like this, I'm convinced. Okay?
Right.
There's no need to further convince me that the Yankees are the team to beat. But again, 162 games, very grueling. Things can happen.
True. I mean, 11 games is kind of hard to win in general, in any sport, especially in a row.
Baseball, nonetheless, has got to be the hardest one to win 11
Yeah,
straight.
I would think so. Especially since you have different rotations every single night.
Yeah.
So that's definitely even harder to prepare about. But you're right, it's still early. You never know what could happen. As of right now, maybe that they're a team to beat after the run, but anything can happen between now and the end of the season, or even the middle of the season. So I guess time will only tell.
I'll tell you, I'm excited though, because so far I'm excited for this baseball season. Again, I imagine Toronto will be in the race. Again, we're still a long ways away from figuring out who's going to make the playoffs. I've seen seasons where the Baltimore Orioles peaked really early, and then they nosedived to end the season. I'm not saying, and I don't think this is going to happen to the Yankees, but what I can see happening is that division could come down to the last week, like it has the last few years. It could very well come down to the last week. I think, maybe the last 2 weeks. But again, we're still too early for me to make any sort of prediction as far as anything else involving this. But it's going to be a tight race. It's going to be a tight 2-3 team race, at least, in the AL East, as it has been for the last few years. So,
right.
But that is it for the Tinkle rundown. Let's get on to the NFL draft. Let's start off by just saying wow with the first pick.
That was an insane draft.
I heard the first round was ridiculously good.
Yeah, it was. It was the most trades in NFL draft first round history with 9. Mm-hmm. Insane. Yeah. And most of those trades were for wide receivers. 6 were chosen in the first round. Most of the trades were for wide receivers itself.
Again, my pet peeve, just saying.
Yeah, I know you don't trade up for a receiver. But this is a very non-quarterback heavy kind of draft. So if there's any position, and there was a good amount of great receivers in this draft. If you're a team and you're trying to become a great offensive team, trading and maybe going after one isn't a bad idea. Detroit did it. They went up and got Jameson Williams out of Alabama. Another top weapon for second year in a row that they decided to draft a wide receiver. And I think it'll be one that's actually going to be good for the Detroit Lions.
Detroit really shocked us, I think, in that draft. Of any team, Detroit really shocked in that draft. Again, Hutchinson fell in their lap, which shouldn't have happened. No. Absolutely shouldn't have happened. And again, they got Williams. I don't think they drafted a quarterback, so it looks like they're going to stick with Jared Goff, which isn't a bad decision.
As they rightfully should. I mean, Jared Goff didn't... Yeah, the Lions were really bad last year, but towards the end of the season, they kind of got sort of turned around. I see them finally like being able to go into the season having two young top receivers.
Well, let's be
I
fair.
think that they can honestly do pretty well for themselves.
Well,
I think that they're going to do better.
let's give a fair assessment of the 2021 Lions wide receiver group. Let's face it, Amon-Ra was a great receiver. He's not by any means a top receiver for a team. I wouldn't have him as wide receiver one on any roster. And then you look on down the depth chart, and it just didn't get much better. I mean, I'm not saying they're not good weapons, but when Hutchinson is your only like legitimate number one, that's a problem. Okay, that's a big issue. And for Jared Goff to go from an offense which had weapons galore to a team that has a really damn good tight end and at par receivers. I'm not going to say subpar. I think par is about accurate.
See, I think now, because I would think that they still have Marvin Jones, right? In the Lions, or is he somewhere else?
I want to say so.
So you have Marvin Jones, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and then you have Jamison Williams. And you hear that, and I'm like, that sounds a lot better than what they had last year, where they only really truly had Amon-Ra and maybe somewhat Marvin Jones. Yeah. Now you got guys that you can put into place. Marvin Jones can play in the slot. You can have Amon-Ra and Jamison Williams in the outside with maybe Marvin Jones, who is a slot receiver finally in his position, in his correct positioning. I think the Lions, they have DeAndre Swift, so and they also have
I'm torn between being 6-11 or 7-10 being the expectation next year. I don't think it's
better than what they were last year. So
I don't think it's fair to really assume more than that, or to put that expectation there. Again, we'll have our NFL season preview later, much later in the year, probably about 4 months from now.
Right.
But can I just say, I think the biggest shock is how far these quarterbacks fell.
Oh, I know.
We knew the Steelers. Well, here's the thing. I think the biggest shock is everyone thought Malik Willis would be the first quarterback off the board to Pittsburgh. And then everyone thought that Kenny Pickett would be number 2 to New Orleans.
It was very heavily rumored that Pittsburgh was going to draft a quarterback anyway.
Yeah.
And then getting Kenny Pickett made the most sense. He was already playing college in Pittsburgh, so why not keep him in?
Just like Hutchinson in Detroit.
In Pittsburgh. So,
but
plus, if you look at Kenny Pickett, of all the quarterbacks that were available at them at number 20, which I think is insane.
To be fair, he's the most
I think he's the best all-around quarterback.
He's
somebody that Mike Tomlin can form into like another maybe like Big Ben like quarterback. Because if you look at him, he doesn't really have the size like Big Ben does, but he has the ability that Big Ben in his prime can have.
See, what I was going to say is where I stand on this is I feel like Kenny Pickett was the most ready, if it came down to it, to start week 1.
Oh, yeah. I think so. Honestly, it wouldn't shock me if it does, because Mike Tomlin didn't really even have it out of the air to have him start week 1.
Yeah, he's the most ready, and that's not. And I want to be clear: this is not saying much about this quarterback.
If you want to play it safe, I would start with Mitchell Trubisky because he's the only quarterback on that roster that has starting experience and has won as a starting quarterback.
See,
so I would go with Mitchell Trubisky because he's helped the Bears into the playoffs.
I'm going to be honest here. Not just that, but I don't think it's a shock that Riddler went to Atlanta. I just want to say that there's no shock there. Where I think was the biggest shock, again, is that they both fell to the third round. And then let's add in as well, Malik Willis got drafted. Here's the thing. Everyone's shocked that Malik Willis got drafted by the Titans. I'm not surprised by that. Okay, let's face it. The Titans,
especially with a very run-heavy type of offense, probably not. I think he can fit very well in a Tennessee Titans offense if he was to get well acquainted with the offense and stuff like that. Just the one thing I don't like with Tannehill, which I agree with a lot of people that said it, your ego aside.
Yeah, I agree with Kurt Warner on that.
Be a teammate, because I hate to say it, the Tennessee Titans don't scream a very scary team. Outside of maybe Derrick Henry, fine, but you take out Derrick Henry out of the game, Tennessee Titans ain't shit. I hate to say it.
The Titans barely hung on to the division, let alone making the playoffs without Derrick Henry. Okay.
Oh, I know.
And that says a lot about Mike Vrabel as a coach. It says more about him as a coach than it does about the roster around him. But what I'm going to say here is, I've said it before. I've lost out on job opportunities. I've lost out on, and on top of it, to add salt to the wounds, I've been asked to do, to help teach people. And again, and I've also offered my services to help to the people who I lost the job out to. Okay? Because it benefits nobody when you act like that. And for Ryan Tannehill, that's not being a teammate, and frankly, that's not being a captain. And I believe he is a captain on that team. Okay? So, when Mike Vrabel's assessing who the captain should be next season, I think Ryan Tannehill is going to be on the outs on that one.
Yeah, I agree. I think Tannehill should definitely not be one after his comments, because he currently is a captain for the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah. But can I just suggest one thing? Did I not say a few months ago, when we thought Jimmy G was going to get traded, that there's a possibility that I think the Titans should go in on that trade? I did say the Titans should go in on a quarterback this offseason.
And and they ended up doing it in the third round with Malik Willis.
Let's be fair. Let's be totally fair here. Ryan Tannehill is the only reason they lost that playoff game.
Oh, I know, I agree.
Okay, but
I will say this now too. I think the only reason why they decided against trading for Jimmy G is because
his contract, number one, I'd say.
Well, probably not just the contract. I think it's more so the fact that, like, if Jimmy G was to get traded to a team, he would probably want to start right away. I don't think he's somebody that really wants to be a backup in this league, especially right now when he's started for the 49ers the last few years. It's rumored that Trey Lance is going to start, which could happen. But the biggest shocker to me, Baker Mayfield still being with the Browns and not getting traded.
Nobody wants his contract.
Cleveland? What are you? I mean, I get it. They don't want, and no team wants the contract, but he still could be a very valuable backup quarterback. I mean, yeah, maybe not a starter, but
there's got to be stuff.
So Cleveland, you're holding onto a contract. You're holding onto dead money, dead weight.
A rookie contract, nonetheless.
Which he's not even going to get yet, because I think this is, if I remember correctly, I think this is his last year.
This was a contract year.
Yeah, so first off, they're not going to renew, they're not going to pick up his fifth-year option.
Yeah, but
they're probably just going to end up releasing him, which would probably just end up being easier for them to do.
All right.
as far as what Cleveland can do this season, it doesn't look very promising because we don't even know if Deshaun Watson's going to play this year. So,
Yeah.
but
let's
okay, I guess
quickly go over our teams now. That's what I was
yeah, I
gonna
was
go
about
to.
say. Let me.
Let's forget the first round. What are your thoughts on the Bills draft this year?
Honestly, not too bad. I think they decided to go after guys that made a lot of sense. Getting Kyer Elam made a lot of sense because we needed a corner. We needed somebody if Trey White wasn't going to be ready week 1 or to start the season in general, the first few games, that Kyer could go in there as a starter, a week 1 starter. You know what impressed me the most? I don't know if you saw footage. He had notes when he was with the Florida Gators of coverages. Like if he was gotten beat or whatever coverage or as many yards he got picked up, he wrote notes so that he could work it out and be able to be better at coverage against said teams and receivers and stuff like that. That takes a lot of that shows a great maturity for a player that's really young. You know what also makes me feel very good about him too? He wanted the playbook on the plane to Buffalo. Mm-hmm. He was willing to learn the playbook. And was he even with the Buffalo Bills
he's
in
the
training
Mac Jones
camp
of
yet?
the defense. Because let's face it, Mac Jones did the exact same thing.
I think he's somebody that's going to be NFL ready as soon as he gets to training camp.
Yeah.
So I feel good about that.
If I were him, I'd start studying film on Mahomes. That would be the priority for him, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I feel good. I really do feel good because if Trey White is ready week 1, having him with Kyer Elam, I think this is kind of like another Stephon Gilmore and I'm trying to remember. They had that other guy that went to the Eagles that was with the Bills that was also pretty good. It could be something like that type of thing. So I feel good. Going after a running back in the second round made sense. Probably one of the better pass-catching running backs. Somebody that Buffalo really does need. I don't think he's going to be somebody that's going to run a lot. I think that's going to be mostly Singletary. But to have somebody to be a pass-catching back out of the backfield with Moss and Singletary as the main ball handlers makes me happy because you can use both Singletary and Cook in the backfield and do a lot of, sneaky plays there.
Well, I did text you that night. I remember when he got drafted. I texted you that night saying, I feel like the expectation is going to be that he has similar traits to his brother and that it's going to put high expectations on him. I'm not saying, I don't feel that's far-fetched. Looking at what his brother's done in the league. What I hope is that he's not as fragile as his brother. Because, let's face it, if his brother wasn't as fragile as he is, that if Dalvin Cook was not as fragile as he is, he'd be not... I mean, he's a top 5 running back right now, but he would be top 3 if it wasn't for that.
The only thing I would like for James Cook to do is get a little bit more bulkier, because if you're going to be a pass-catching, primarily possibly a pass-catching back, get some muscle on you so then you can body defenders while you're, catching the ball. So then you can break some tackles and stuff like that. Because right now he's a very undersized running back, I want to say. Yeah, don't get me wrong. He's, it's good to have that so then you can be a very speedy running back. But I don't think he's somebody that needs to be the primary speedy running back, especially when Buffalo has 2 other running backs that they drafted. Yeah. And if you look at Buffalo's running back core, it's crazy because they're all drafted running backs. This is. But other than that, I think that they did very good. And like I was gonna say before, and before you go to the Chargers, I think Buffalo is better complete-wise than the Chiefs are right now. Don't get me wrong.
The Chiefs did really good on the defensive side, though. Let's give them credit there. They really went all in on defense, which is something we've been crying for
the Bills
the last
or the
2
Chiefs?
years. The Chiefs. I think the Chiefs drafted 6 defensive players, and most of them in the early rounds. So they're gonna.
That's all fine and dandy, but like you know that the weakness is still on that offensive side. I hate to say it, no offense, but losing Hill is going to really hurt that team in a major way.
I look at it as
you
the
still
seesaw.
have Travis Kelce, you have Juju Smith-Schuster, you have Marquez Valdez-Scantling, but Mahomes is going to find out the hard way that the egos of Juju is probably going to eat him alive more than anything.
Yeah. I look at it.
You thought he was cocky enough on Pittsburgh. He's going to be even more so with Kansas City.
Well, I look at it this way. Remember those old school produce scales where you put something in and it dropped? Like if you put a watermelon in that thing and it dropped like that. That was the Chiefs' offense versus the defense, okay? They were a melon, okay? That was the one thing, in a way, the Chiefs neglected for the last 5-6 years. They've neglected it. They said, you know what? We're going to rely on the offensive talent. And then this year, they finally said, screw it. We have a good quarterback. We're just gonna trust that he can make it work with this offense, which now features the top tight end in football and 2 top 25 receiver, a top 25 receiver and a pretty decent number 2 at best in MVS. Okay, they said screw it. We're gonna trust that Mahomes can do it with this duct taped offense outside of Travis Kelce.
See, it's all fine and dandy to have that, but the thing is like, most of that starting defensive talent is going to be rookies.
Yeah.
And
but they do have veterans. They still have Brad Sorensen. They still have Chris Jones. So they still got their core pieces.
What's going to really hurt them too is losing Tyrann Mathieu.
Yeah.
I think that's what's going to hurt them in a major way. I think teams are going to be able to finally expose the Chiefs defensively, especially in the air. Because now that you don't have Tyrann Mathieu, the Honey Badger, they better hope that they can be able to stop the air attack. Because now you don't have one of the best safeties in NFL, and you didn't really do anything to combat it. So
And can I just add quickly, because we're running close on time here. Chargers did well. I expected defense. I think coming out with Penning is a nice consolation prize, and I'm glad that our GM there did not go all in on saying we're going to trade up. I'm glad he didn't, because you know what? We got good pieces right now. It's still... Tom Telesco is still going, his ass is on the line for all these moves. Okay. He's still going to have his ass on the line, but, come out with Penning. I think Spiller was a decent steal. And keep in mind, if you know anything about Austin Eckler, the last few years he said, I want a good running back alongside me to take the pressure off of me. Maybe, just maybe, we have that with Spiller now. But as far as us being the second team in the AFC in terms of best odds to make the Super Bowl, I'm not buying it just yet. I will say the expectation is there after all the big moves, but I think expectation versus reality sets in here, where I feel like the reality is going to be a first or second round exit at the highest. because, again, looking at the Bills being so evenly matched with the Chiefs. But,
Right.
yeah, we're a little over. So I think now's a good time to take our break here. When we come back, we're going to talk the overseas games real quick. We'll talk Tinkle on this. So we'll be back in just a moment. All right, NFL going international. We officially got all the matchups that we will see. And it kicks off on October 2nd when the Saints play the Vikings. That'll be on NFL Network. Then, of course, the next week we'll see the Giants and the Packers. And keep in mind, this is the first time the Packers are taking part in an overseas game. That'll be October 9th, NFL Network as well. NFL Network's going to be carrying most of those games. But then you skip ahead a few weeks. The Jags and the Broncos on October 30th. It will be on ESPN Plus, the first exclusive NFL game to ESPN Plus. It will not be the first exclusively streamed game. That will be the Chiefs and the Chargers week number 2. That's exclusive to a streaming network.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, so then, of course, we skip ahead, and we then go to Germany on November 13th. That will be the Seahawks and the Bucks. And then Mexico 2022 will end the international tour with the Cardinals and the 49ers. And that'll be on Monday Night Football right before Thanksgiving. And I just got to say, I don't like that game got moved out there. Only because it shouldn't be divisional games that get moved out.
Oh, I agree. It really should be.
But, yeah, so what are your thoughts here, these slate of games?
See, I mean, we already had the international series with, with Toronto, with the Bills, and in London. It's kind of crazy how far they're going out. 5 international games. I think the most ever, 2 in 1 year. So
Yeah.
I think that's kind of crazy, but something to try to get their international viewers involved more with the American sports. So I think that's the main reason why they're trying to go with that route. But at least they look to be some pretty good games. I think the Saints and Vikings can have a good game overseas. Same thing with the Giants and Packers. I think the Giants can be a very maybe underdog team, but I don't know. Packers, who knows? Broncos, Jags will be interesting. I think the Seahawks and the Bucks is probably going to be a very one-sided game. But if there's any game that might be interesting to see is the Cardinals and the 49ers in Mexico.
Yeah. And at the risk of repeating myself, you all know my thoughts on the overseas games, that they should be played in the preseason as opposed to the regular season. I feel like no team should lose out. I get trying to expand the market, but doing it in the regular season, costing teams a home game, I'm sorry, it shouldn't be at the expense of that.
Right. I mean, now there's there's 17 games, so technically it could be that extra home game because with loosening up the preseason and gaining like an extra home or away game.
And so I get it, but still, I don't think it's right that these games are sent overseas, the regular season games. I feel like I think it's unfair to the players, and I think it's unfair to especially season ticket holders that expect to go see 8 to 9 games a year.
Mm-hmm. And then they can't because of that reason. Yeah, I know.
I mean, yeah, so that's been my thoughts on it. In terms of the games themselves, I'm just glad they sent over some pretty lackluster games at best. I mean, the Saints and the Vikings have always been good. They always play each other good. So
yes, they do.
There's no doubt about that one being a good game. Giants and the Packers, we'll see what happens with the Giants. but I imagine it'll be a Packers routing there. And then, Broncos, Jags, it's going to be the Broncos blowout, probably. And then, Seahawks, Bucks, iffy. I mean, but again, I'm still, for as mad as I am about overseas games being during the regular season and international games being in the regular season, what makes me angrier is now seeing a divisional game get sent out, because again, this is a game that could sell out in San Fran or sell out in Arizona, whichever game they just lost. And especially in a division where 3 out of the 4 teams can make the playoffs any given year. So, that's just my thought on it. I hate that they keep doing that. But anyway, let's move on here. The other big news that just came out today, Jerry Jones was involved in a car crash. He is okay. He was taken to the hospital for evaluation along with minor injuries. Thankful for that. I know Jerry Jones is not well liked among many NFL fans, but, thankful that he wasn't seriously hurt.
Right, exactly.
And again, if you've seen anything, if you've seen his back on the record interview, this is even more reason, I think, not to like him. But nonetheless, I don't wish ill will on anybody, really. So, good to see that he's okay. We'll see the aftermath of it very soon.
I'm hoping. I'm glad that he's okay too. It just sucks to see anybody involved in any kind of car crash.
Exactly. But let's get on to Tinkle on this, and let's go back a few weeks. I've had enough of ripping on the NBA on TNT for 1 week. I think you have too, considering we've been doing it for the last 2 to 3 weeks before we went on those breaks. Let's switch it to the NFL draft. Go back a few weeks. Sauce Gardner's life was changed when he was drafted by the New York Jets. Probably not for the good. Trust me, it's probably not for the good. But actually, it might be. I think Sauce Gardner's going to be pretty good. But
I'll say my comments about him after we continue. But
yeah,
it was kind of hilarious because he went the exact wrong way to the stage. I hate to say it, if I was drafted by the Jets, I would probably do the same thing too.
He was walking toward the exit. That's my opinion. He was walking toward the exit. He said, "Fuck it, I'm gonna head out."
But what's interesting about him too is, did you see his necklace? He actually keeps a little small thing of sauce around his neck. And the sauce jar is full of actual sauce, which is interesting. But come on now, man. You have rehearsals for where you have to go when you get chosen. And you go the wrong way anyway? What?
That would make me scared if he was in coverage. But for that, though, Sauce Gardner, Tinkle on this. Welcome to the NFL, bud. Hope your short stay with the Jets goes well.
So now that we went past that little part, the only thing I don't like about Sauce Gardner is that he claims that he's going to put Stefon Diggs under wrap. I hate to say it, bud. Oh, and in coverage too, and in man-to-man coverage. Let me tell you something now, bud. Do we have to have a history lesson of how good Stefon Diggs is in man-to-man coverage? One of the best receivers against man-to-man coverage. So do we have to be reminded? I hope to God Buffalo plays the Jets.
He's going to be a walking meme.
Because I would love to see Stefon Diggs just have a little day over Sauce Gardner, because you know what's going to happen.
I would have been more scared, and I think you can agree on this. If anything, I would have been more scared of Darrelle Revis in his prime going against Stephon Diggs. I feel like that would be more shut down than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Because let's face it, Darrelle Revis on the Jets was the first stint on the Jets, not the second one. The first one he was just an animal. It didn't matter how good your receiver was, he was getting shut down. So,
I know.
But with that, what's coming up this week on No Final Bell?
Well, so with everything with MJF and Warlow, they've been at hands. The only way that Warlow can have matches is if MJF books them for matches. Well, we had a surprising debut of W. Morrissey, who is a free agent, was originally wrestling in Impact Wrestling, former WWE wrestler. You can't teach that with Enzo Amore, so he has changed his whole look. I don't know who won the match, but all I know is it's great to see W. Morrissey in AEW and compete against Wardlow. So, speaking of that, what is going up on Turn 4?
Man, we are entering the exciting... Here's the thing. February is an exciting month for football. June's an exciting month for basketball and hockey. And now we got the month of May, which is like Christmas to racing fans. With the Monaco Grand Prix coming up, we're of course going to kick off the month in Indy, of course, with the GMR Grand Prix next weekend, and then the Coca-Cola 600 and the Indianapolis 500 Memorial Day weekend. But it all begins with the GMR Grand Prix, and of course there's been some news leaked already on the 33rd entry into the Indianapolis 500. I talked about it last show. It is now confirmed what I said on that show, and we'll talk about that. We'll also talk about, predictions for the GMR Grand Prix, and then of course we got some silly season updates as well. Again, I'm shocked that we're even talking silly season this early in the season, because normally in May we're talking rumors. Now we're talking legitimate, like, contract extensions. We're talking, sponsor changes. And, of course, again, well, it's not unusual that we're talking IndyCar moves right now, just because we're still filling the field of 33. So that's what's coming up. Again, we'll be on Tuesday, 5 p.m. Eastern, Facebook and YouTube. And Jason and Marty will be on Wednesday, 5 p.m. Eastern on YouTube. So we hope you'll tune into both shows. We're not going on vacation next Sunday, so don't panic just yet and say,
No,
"Oh
but
man,
not at least until August."
yeah, we're not going on vacation till probably mid-late summer, so don't worry about it. So we'll be back next Sunday. We'll have more NBA playoffs to discuss, of course. We'll also have more hockey playoffs and maybe some more news to discuss. Now that the draft's over, probably not too much exciting stuff going on in football. Actually, no, wait. We have the schedule to talk next time, I think.
Oh, yes, we do.
So we have the full NFL schedule.
Will be the official NFL schedule. With the Christmas games to be announced first, and then the rest of the season to be announced afterwards. So a little bit of the update. I think all the games will be announced May 12th at 8 p.m. on NFL Network. So if anybody is ready to watch that in a little more than 7 days,
and
definitely watch out for it. I will be watching out for it.
Again, if it's not the Chiefs and the Bills in prime time on Christmas Day, it was a waste to go on Christmas Day.
I think so too.
But we're forgetting
we'll talk about it. And who's to know? Very very heavy rumor. I don't know if it's heavy rumor, but at least the rumors have it that Rams and Bills to open off the season. It could happen.
Yep, we will see. Of course, we're forgetting one big thing is we have to go off the air. Happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there.
Yeah.
I think last year we forgot. So we're making up for it this year. Happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. Looking forward to it later. But until then, goodbye, everyone. We'll see you next Sunday.